did it, Sarah. You're first up. Wow. So much for my skittish goat, huh? Yeah? Hey guys, welcome to the farm. JC Mason here. If this is your new time to our channel, we homestead on a property here in Virginia, raising goats, and I make cheese and just try to make all our milk products as well as soap. And I have a little soap company that I sell, a little small business on the side, but we utilize our horses for therapy for the community, for kids, and that's where I want to share with you just a tragic loss that we had. I would say it was probably the most traumatizing experience I have ever had. It's been a week as I'm recording this, and I just thought I'd share my milking routine as I share with you, because I knew I just couldn't do it on camera. This way I can be able to stop and compose myself and get back into it, but I did want to share. It was a completely freak accident, and it was a normal Sunday where my husband we come up about 8 to lock up the chickens, to check on everyone. I was behind this barn which I'm in right now. This is our goat, and on the other side, like where I have my camera set up, is where our chicken coop is, and then they go out the other side. But we have a lot of pullets and they're still getting out, so I was getting them in. I came back around and tossed those pullets in, and then into their coop. And Mike said, I think Amber hit her leg on the fence or something. I heard some commotion over there. So I'm like, let me go check on her. Now, Amber we have had her for about 5 years. She has limited sight. I knew that when we got her. I could tell she was, you could tell she had, her sight was impaired. And we've used her for therapy. Even though with her limited sight, she gave kids rides, and we just had that Friday before, we had a beautiful ride with 3 of our youth volunteers that come. They help do chores, and then they learn horsemanship, natural horsemanship, and just how to care for them, and they get to ride, and it was just amazing. I was just amazed by that day, and so thankful, and just thanking God for that day. Well, as I walked out to the field, I saw blood on her leg, and she was still a good distance away, and I thought she'd skinned her. Basically, I thought she had skinned her leg, and I said, Mike, she's hurt real bad, and I could see her getting that pressure off of that one leg. And I grabbed the halter and went out into the field, and as I got, I'm focusing in on her leg, and as I got closer, I saw that there was a gaping hole and tear in her chest and uncontrollable bleeding. I took my sweatshirt off and tried to hold pressure as I'm hollering for Mike, and I just remember saying, Jesus, 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 over and over again, because I knew this was pretty fatal. I didn't know how she was going to recover from this, but she stood and let us apply pressure. She did not run. She did not move. She stood with us. My husband got his sweatshirt off and held pressure on top of my sweatshirt. And I tried to use his phone. I had left my phone on the banister in this barn, and his phone was awful. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I had all my numbers in my phone. Finally, I just called 911, and I gave the address. They said, what is the address of your emergency? And I just gave the address, and I said, I am sorry. This is for a horse, but she is bleeding out, and I can't get a hold of animal control. I can't get a hold of my vet. And she was like, no worries. We got you. I'll get animal control, and I'll send out to you, and I'll get an EMT on the way. And just standing there, even with our sweatshirts and pressing on her, there was still blood just pouring out, and she stood and let us take care of her. And it was probably what felt like an eternity, but I was on the phone with the 911 for a while until They got there. EMT got there first, and we're in Spotsylvania, Virginia. So I just put a post up thanking them, because if it wasn't for them showing up and for animal control showing up, my husband and I would have been in a field alone and dark with a horse that's bleeding out. So I was, just looking back on the tragedy and, thanking God for that I had a calm horse. And that was Amber. Amber was she liked to move. She liked to move her feet when you rode her, but she understood her job with the kids, and she just began to be a very faithful, a therapy horse. I mean, just amazing. So she stood as she learned to do and was calm and let us take care of her. EMT hopped the fence and they brought us one of those pads where they just can pack people with that are bleeding out. And as soon as we took the sweatshirts off, the blood started gushing again. And my, husband held on to that pad, and they put another one on, and then they configured, we got a horse blanket, and then we configured a compression, weighted down by a water bottle. And it seemed as though the gushing in that blood had stopped. We didn't check. We kept that on. We didn't want to relieve that pressure at all. And I finally, after probably an hour, got notification that a vet would be there in about 30 minutes, which again felt like forever. But she was calm. I had given her Banamine. Banamine is a pain med you can give orally. It's actually safer to give orally to horses. I didn't have any paste. I just had the injectable, but you can give that to them. And I did give her a good dose of that. And then I checked her gums and her eyes, and I saw that she had, it was evident she lost a lot of blood, but she was becoming very pale. But still she stood. And in the midst of all these, we probably had 8 to 10 people in the field with us. Lights. Our poor son, he was down playing. He had been playing his game, and he looked up. There was no way we could get in hold of him. And he looked out and noticed it was dark, and we weren't back from locking up the chickens. And then he looked up the driveway, and all he saw were flashing lights. So he immediately thought it was something wrong with me and his dad, like something happened. And he said he was running up the driveway praying that we were okay. So he hopped the fence and was like, what happened? And he loved Amber very much. And he had a moment, and he had a really hard time dealing with this. But there was no way I could get a hold of him, and no way I could leave Amber to run down to the house. So it was hard, but he helped get a heat lamp from our shop, and that helped provide some heat. It was getting down to be kind of a chilly night for April, for the end of April, but we were trying to keep her from hypothermia, and so he was helping in the process of that. I know traumatic experience for him, because you're walking in and you're just seeing puddles of blood, and it's just would be hard for anybody. It would be hard for anybody to be in that situation. The vet finally came, and I was, thinking, okay, maybe she can repair, maybe, because we have a really nice barn. I've had a horse that was boarded here that had eye surgery in our barn, and I was thinking, okay, maybe this isn't fatal. Maybe she can help. And when the vet came and removed that pad, those pads that were keeping that bleeding at bay, she was able to put her whole hand into her chest cavity and up into the outer part of her throat and felt that there was a torn artery. It wasn't the carotid artery, it was another main artery in the throat, in the neck. And that was the deciding factor that Amber needed to be put down. Here I have this amazing horse. She's beautiful. I always, you'd always hear somebody in the barn saying, Amber, you're so pretty. You're so beautiful. All the girls, even me, would say, you're so beautiful. And Amber had a tough life. I mean, from the time she was 2, she was bought. She's a Wapsapalooza. She was a sport horse, bred for sport. And from the time she was 2, she ended up in a hoarding situation. And then from the hoarding situation, she was pulled, but somehow went through the cracks of the rescue and ended up in a slaughter. And someone came through and saw her and said, that is a Wapsapalooza, I'm pulling her. They pulled her and trained her. And she was sold to a family that had a young lady, and she had kids, husband. She had worked with Appaloosas. But it got hard, with kids. And she knew Amber needed a better situation. And so she donated it to us through a rescue that we had gotten several other horses from. And I worked with Amber. I had a trainer come out, and there was just some things that we wanted to work on. I always make sure the horses are safe before the kids get on. And it became evident that Amber was a scanner. She would scan you. When you would come, she would come to you and just check you out and take your temperature, basically. And then if there was anybody in need of a companion or a piece, or she had this way of just standing with you. And she did that with me. And I would sing to her, and she would get closer and just breathe on me into my face and be close. And she started losing her eyesight more, and you could tell she couldn't find her food bowl very well. And so what happened? I don't know what happened. We know she ran into the fence. We know she broke the board. And we know that the board broke into her chest. But I don't know, we didn't hear anybody get spooked. We didn't hear a gunshot these horses that we utilize for therapy they can spook, don't get me wrong, the horses, but they're pretty chill. They have a very simple, easy life. Basically being present with these kids that come. There's not much of a, fear factor here of anything. We have desensitized. Other word I use is not so much desensitized, but build their confidence in their surroundings, noises, different things, let them know they're safe. So I don't know if she just got turned around to where she was in the field. She was only really allowed into 3 of our 7 fields because it was a square. She knew the space. She knew her parameter. And so it had to have been some force. And I can't keep beating myself up over what entailed what happened, but we just know that she ran into the fence and it was fatal. And Amber stood and fought a little bit, not she didn't want to lay down, put it that way. But, the vet is very gracious that's why I didn't want animal control to put her down. I wanted my vet to put her down because they give a pain med, a sleepy med, and it gets them to lay down. And then the euthanasia drug is given. But she fought laying down in the sense of that she wouldn't lay down. It wasn't like she was running around or anything. It was just, she just did not want to buckle her legs underneath of her and lay down. And finally she did. And the other 2 horses in the field are amazing. They did amazing. They knew she was hurt. When it happened, from what I saw coming into the field, thinking she hurt her leg, the other 2 horses, Luna and Cider, hemmed her in. And that is where, I mean, they just came side by side her, both facing opposite ways, but just stood by her. And they knew horses can pick up heart rate. They can pick up when a horse is scared about something or injured, and they will pick up that heart rate and match it. They will do that with humans too. That's why they make such great therapy animals. And they came and would check on her every once in a while. But once she was put down, one at a time, they came and smelled her and walked away. And then Cider was first, and then Luna came and smelled her and walked away. And then we moved them to another field. They never called for her. And that's how I knew, in their way, somehow the way that they understand, that she was gone. Because if I would take her out of the field to work with her, they would holler. She was the herd leader. They would holler and holler and holler. They wanted her back. But when I moved them on the other side of the barn, they did not call for her. And I knew they understood on the level that they understand, that she was gone. So where is God in the midst of tragedy? Number one, we live in a fallen world. We live in a fallen world, and God's will is not done all the time on earth as it is in heaven. That's why we need to pray about our surroundings and protection and all those things. We have an enemy that wants to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's the world we live in a spiritual battle. And Amber's precious life, among many others, that human and animal, that we encounter in our life and lose. That is a hard tragedy. But remembering that we are in a spiritual battle, and that God is in the midst of tragedy. This is a world that is sinful and broken and fallen. And God is reaching in to help. He is desiring to be present even in the midst. Like, we have so many things that, I looked back on going, she was quiet. She was calm. She stood. She did everything that she was taught to do and be safe, to stand, even in the midst of the state of being of what she just tragedy. And then the other thing was that we were not alone in that field. God uses people, and He used people from the EMT. He used the people from the animal control to stand with us, to not let us be alone. They brought light into the field so that we weren't alone in the dark. And I'm so thankful for that. And in the midst of tragedy, life goes on. There's so many things that we just have to continue to do, especially running a farm, running a homestead. I gotta milk the goats. I gotta make the cheese and all the things. And in the midst of pain. And I still need to open the farm up for these youth that need a place to come and work with the horses and have those experiences they may not otherwise have. So it was a hard week. I didn't cancel any sessions, any volunteer times, which is really hard for me, because anytime there's something difficult, I just want to hide from the world. I don't want to talk with people. And I just knew I had to. I took time to grieve, so obviously I still am, but I wanted to allow people to do the same as well, and I wanted to keep the farm open. And, when we're in the midst of a spiritual battle too, which you feel like the enemy wants us to shut down, the enemy wants us to just give up, the enemy wants us to stop doing what we're doing and focus in on the tragedies and the heartbreak and all those things. And I couldn't do that. I had to continue on with what I know I'm called to do, not only just for my family, being there and doing all those things, and that your mom does and that a wife does, but taking care of the farm, the animals, and continuing to run this equine ministry that we have prayed for so long. I mean, we prayed for 10 years and we've been here now 8 years. So it's been an 18-year up and down, but so worth it, because reaching these kids and all those who come to the farm. So I know sometimes we hear like people try to be, I've gotten so many amazing messages and just heartfelt condolences and everything. And I think sometimes, I haven't heard any of this, but sometimes people will say, well, God needed another angel. And, and I just I don't believe that for human or animal. I don't believe that that's because, a God that heals and a God that would, it's kind of a longer, I could go into so much more, but it's a kingdom dividing itself, basically. God doesn't want us to die. God doesn't want our animals to die. This is the state that we're in because we're in a fallen world. Freak accidents happen, things happen. Yes, we're in a spiritual battle. There's things that happen in my life where I've made bad decisions. I'm dealing with things that from other people's bad decisions, the free will that we have, and death is an enemy. So it's not a graduation. It's not, when Christ returns, then we'll be in a place getting to where God's will is being done. But God's will isn't always being done. So it's a reminder every morning for me to pray for my family, for my homestead, for the animals, for everything we're doing, for praying for wisdom. And it reminds me that I got to stay on task. The enemy is walking around like a roaring lion waiting to attack. And I need to stay on task and remember that. Remember to pray. So I just really wanted to do this video to let y'all know what has happened, and just I'm at the point now where I'm like, you go through these grief states where I'm angry, like I'm going to be more talking about my faith. No one's going to shut me up. So in the midst of grief and all of that, it has really rocked my world, and I now see that I need to be more talking about my faith and encouraging others in that this world is going to have trouble. This world's going to have pain. But I'm so thankful, just like those EMTs and those people standing in the field with us, we were not alone. And Jesus was there in the midst of all that, and knowing that, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, no matter what, God can save us from the fire. But if he doesn't, I'm not going to worship anybody else. I think that's a huge, just reminded me. So, thank you for hanging out. By the way, I love this man. This is my husband, Mike. August we'll be married. I've known him for 31 years. We've been married for, will it be 28 this year? 28 years. So thankful for him. Well, I'm back down at the house, and I got to put my milk in the jars, and I didn't get as much because I milked early. It was early Sunday, and typically during the week I milk around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I'll get more. I'll get about a gallon, and I didn't get a gallon today. So that's all right. I'm going to be making all kinds of things, some yogurt and some more cheese, which I actually have another cheese in there. I made a cheese later after recording this. I made another cheddar. Well, it's technically not a cheddar because I used Greek yogurt as my culture, but I think it's going to be one of my favorite cheeses. I really do. I love the curds it gives, so I think it's going to give a good cheese as well. But I appreciate you guys listening. I pray that you are encouraged, and thanks for watching and subscribing and liking. We are praying that this channel will be one of the avenues of being able to get my husband home full time so we can conquer so many things together. That's the goal. I will leave below if you would like to donate to Amber's vet and cremation. We've raised about 1,000 so far. It was about, I have to look, I'll put it down below, but I have 1,500 left on that. We've paid it personally, but our nonprofit, so we raise money to get that and pay that. So guys, thank you so much. Be blessed. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.